Why did one reckless question cost me my marriage, home, and reputation? How did my husband turn quiet humiliation into total legal victory? I thought I was proving a point about love and satisfaction, but that same night, I learned what real consequences look like. My name is Liora Vale. I'm 33, and I swear I never meant for things to go as far as they did. Nathan and I were supposed to be the stable couple everyone envied, the kind that made marriage look easy. We had a tidy house, 2 kids who adored him, and a routine that worked like clockwork. But lately, that same routine started to feel like a cage. Nathan barely looked at me when he got home from work. He'd eat, shower, fall asleep on the couch. No compliments, no surprises, no spark. I told myself he'd just changed with age, that men always did. Still, I couldn't stop wondering if this was really all there was. Nathan's best friend, Miles Rourke, was the opposite. Talkative, confident, the kind of man who filled a room. He'd come by for barbecues, make the kids laugh, help Nathan fix things around the house. Sometimes when Nathan was too tired to talk, Miles would stay behind, chatting with me in the kitchen. I told myself it was innocent. I liked the attention, the feeling of being noticed again. I didn't realize how dangerous that small comfort was becoming. At the clinic where I worked, the other women complained about their husbands all the time. They said it was normal for marriage to go cold, that a woman had to find ways to keep herself happy. When I mentioned that Nathan hadn't taken me on a date in months, one of them laughed and said maybe I needed to remind him what he could lose. The idea stayed with me. It didn't sound like betrayal then. It sounded like balance. I began comparing them more and more. Nathan, quiet and steady, like a locked door. Miles, open and easy, always ready with a joke. When Nathan forgot our anniversary for the first time, I convinced myself it proved what I already feared. He didn't see me anymore. That night I sat in the dark kitchen, scrolling through messages from Miles, rereading his friendly jokes, and something in me hardened. I wasn't planning to do anything. I just wanted to feel wanted again. Looking back, maybe that was the first real lie I told myself. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. It started so small I almost didn't notice it. Miles came over one Friday evening to help Nathan install new shelves in the garage. I was in the kitchen making lemonade, half listening to them laugh over some old college story. Nathan's laughter was rare these days, and hearing it made me realize how long it had been since he'd laughed with me. When they finished, Miles came inside to wash his hands, smiling that easy, bright smile that always made people like him instantly. He said the lemonade looked good, and I told him he could have some if he promised to stop making my husband believe he was still 25. He laughed and said, Nathan needed reminders, he used to be fun. That one comment stayed with me. Nathan, fun. I tried to picture it, but all I could see was him half asleep on the couch, TV droning, one hand on the remote. Later that night, I brought it up, teasing him that Miles still saw him as the party guy. Nathan said he wasn't that person anymore. He had responsibilities. He looked at me and said, maybe I should appreciate that. I told him I did, but what I meant was that I missed feeling excited about us. He didn't ask what I meant. He just said he was tired and went to bed. The next week, I started talking to Miles more on social media. It began as a thank you message for helping Nathan, but turned into long chats that drifted late into the night. We joked about old music, about Nathan's obsession with his tools, about how adulthood was just bills and schedules. Miles asked if I was happy. I said I was fine. Then I said, fine isn't the same as happy. He replied, you deserve more than fine. That line sat in my head all day. Nathan didn't notice me acting different. He rarely did. I started paying more attention to how I looked before work, not for him, but for that tiny thrill of being seen. One afternoon, while the kids were at my mother's, Nathan came home early. He found me reading messages from Miles and asked who I was smiling at. I told him it was a co-worker. He nodded and didn't press. That night I called my mother. I told her Nathan was growing distant, that I felt invisible. She said men go through quiet phases, that I should be patient. Then she added, "But don't let him forget you're desirable, Liora." I said I wouldn't. The next weekend, Nathan invited Miles again for a barbecue. I wore a dress I hadn't worn in years, bright, fitted, a little too much for a backyard evening. Miles noticed. Nathan didn't. I laughed too loudly at Miles's jokes, poured him another drink before he asked, and caught his eye once too often. Nathan didn't see it, or maybe he didn't want to. When they left for a quick store run, my sister Tessa, who'd dropped by, gave me that look only younger sisters can give. She said I was playing a dangerous game. I told her she was overreacting. I said I was just being friendly. But when Nathan and Miles returned, I found myself adjusting my hair and straightening my dress before they walked in. Later that night, while cleaning up, I sent Miles a message. "You really shouldn't make me laugh that much." He sent a smiley face. Then, maybe Nathan should try harder. The following Friday, I met Miles for lunch. I told Nathan it was a meeting with someone from the clinic. I hated how easily the lie came out of my mouth. Miles looked nervous when I arrived. He said Nathan trusted me completely and that he didn't want to cause problems. I told him he wasn't causing anything, that I just needed someone to talk to. We ate, talked about ordinary things, and then somehow the conversation turned back to my marriage. I said Nathan didn't touch me the way he used to, that he treated me like part of the furniture. Miles frowned, said maybe Nathan didn't realize how lucky he was. I asked, half joking, "Do you think you could do better?" He looked at me, startled, and said I shouldn't say things like that. I laughed and said I was just testing a theory, that sometimes men only value what someone else wants. He said that wasn't fair, and I shrugged. When I got home, Nathan was building something in the garage. He smiled when he saw me and asked if I wanted to help paint it later. I said I had a headache. He said, "Okay," like he always did. I went upstairs and texted Miles again. I told him I hadn't meant to make him uncomfortable, that I just missed being seen as a woman, not just a wife. He didn't reply for a while. Then he sent, "You are seen, Liora." Maybe by the wrong person, but still seen. The next day, we met again. I told myself it was to clear the air, to make sure he didn't misunderstand. We met at a small cafe outside town, where no one would recognize us. We talked quietly, awkwardly. I told him I felt trapped in my own life. Like no matter what I did, Nathan would never notice me again. Miles tried to comfort me, said maybe I was being too hard on Nathan. I said he didn't understand. I said I needed proof I was still worth wanting. He hesitated, said, "You shouldn't say things like that." I said I wasn't saying, I was asking. I asked if he'd ever thought about me that way. He admitted once, years ago, before I married Nathan. I said maybe that's why he's the only one who really sees me. He looked like he wanted to leave. I reached out and touched his arm. That single moment stretched too long. I don't even know who leaned in first. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't passionate, it was desperate. The kiss lasted maybe a few seconds before Miles pulled back. He said this was wrong, that Nathan would never forgive either of us. I told him Nathan never noticed anything. But even as I said it, shame burned through me. I left before he could reply. That night, I pretended everything was normal. Nathan watched TV, I folded laundry, answered the kids' questions about school, smiled at all the right moments, but I could feel something heavy sitting in my chest. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Miles. "He deserves to know, Liora. I can't keep this secret." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I typed back, "Don't you dare ruin my life over one stupid mistake." When I turned around, Nathan was standing in the doorway. He asked who I was talking to. I said it was work. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded and said, "You've been busy lately." It wasn't a question. It was a quiet observation that made my stomach twist. I went to bed early, pretending to sleep while he sat downstairs alone. I could hear the low hum of his phone vibrating on the table, the faint sound of him typing something, maybe to Miles. I'll never forget that silence. It felt like the sound of something breaking, slowly, but for good. For 2 days, nothing happened. Nathan went to work as usual, quiet but polite. He kissed the kids goodnight, spoke to me only when necessary, and didn't bring up the late messages or my sudden meetings. I convinced myself he didn't know, or maybe he didn't care. Both thoughts hurt in different ways. At the clinic, I overheard 2 co-workers whispering near the break room. One of them said my name, the other mentioned Miles. I walked in, smiled, and they fell silent. That was how I learned the rumor had started. Someone must have seen us at the cafe. I laughed it off, told them Miles was like a brother to my husband, that people love to invent drama. Still, I felt their eyes follow me the rest of the day. That night, I asked Nathan if people had been talking to him. He said no. Then he said, maybe that was because people already knew the truth. My stomach dropped. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, like something inside him had gone out. I tried to sound calm, told him whatever he'd heard was exaggerated. He said, I didn't hear it. I saw it. I froze. He told me Miles had come to the house that morning while I was at work. He'd wanted to confess before Nathan found out some other way. I started crying immediately, saying Miles had twisted things, that it wasn't what it looked like. Nathan just nodded slowly and said he believed me less with every word I spoke. For days after that, he barely looked at me. The silence was worse than yelling would have been. My mother said he was punishing me for making him look small. She said I had to take control before he ruined my reputation. Men forgive if you remind them what they stand to lose, she said. So I put on a brave face. I told anyone who asked that Nathan had been cold for months, that I'd made a mistake because I was lonely, not unfaithful. Tessa came over one evening and saw me trying to upload a smiling family picture online. She said, "You're pretending again." I told her to mind her business. She said quietly, "He's not your enemy, Liora, but he's learning how to stop being your victim." That line haunted me. A week later, I found a paper folded neatly on Nathan's desk, an appointment card for a law office. My hands went cold. When he got home, I asked why he was seeing a lawyer. He said it was for practical reasons. I laughed and asked if he planned to divorce me over a rumor. He said, "Not a rumor, a record." Then he went upstairs. That night, I checked our bank account. Several transfers had gone through to an account I didn't recognize. When I confronted him, he said calmly, "That's for the kids. They'll need stability." He didn't raise his voice, didn't accuse me. He just took his pillow and went to sleep in the guest room. By the next week, I couldn't stand the distance. I told myself I'd make him see reason. I dressed carefully and showed up at his workplace with lunch, smiling for his co-workers. He looked surprised, but not pleased. In the parking lot, I told him we needed to talk like adults. He agreed and met me later that afternoon at a cafe. I said we could fix this if he stopped listening to everyone else. He said, "I'm not listening to them anymore. I'm listening to myself." I accused him of acting superior, of trying to make me pay. He said I'd already done that on my own. When I asked what he wanted, he said, "Peace." I went home furious. That night, I marched into his room and said he couldn't just destroy our family because of one mistake. He looked up from his laptop and said, "It wasn't one mistake, Liora. It was every lie after it." He turned the screen toward me. My messages with Miles were there, printed and time-stamped, even the ones I'd deleted. I gasped, asking how he got them. He said, "You taught me passwords shouldn't be shared. I finally learned." I tried to reach for the laptop, but he shut it gently. I begged him not to ruin everything over something meaningless. He said, "Meaningless things don't wreck trust. People do." Then he told me he'd already met with his lawyer, that there would be papers soon, that everything he did would be legal and fair. I called my mother in tears. She told me to stay strong, that no court would side with him if I made him look heartless. I clung to that idea, repeating it like a spell. But the next day I got a call from his lawyer, polite and professional, asking for a list of shared assets. That night, Tessa came by again. She looked at me, surrounded by printed emails and crumpled tissues, and said softly, "He's not fighting you anymore, Liora. He's freeing himself." I said I'd fix it before it went too far. She said, "It already has." When she left, I stood by the window watching the driveway, waiting for Nathan to come home. He didn't. His car stayed gone all night. The next morning, a plain white envelope sat on the porch. My name was typed neatly across it. I didn't have to open it to know what it was, but I did anyway. Inside was the official notice: petition for legal separation, Nathan Vale versus Liora Vale. I dropped it on the floor and sat there staring, hearing the kids laughing in the next room, wondering how I'd managed to destroy everything without even realizing when the breaking began. My mother insisted we call a family meeting. She said Nathan was just making a show of strength, and that if I appealed to him in front of everyone, he'd drop the act. She believed no man wanted to look cruel in front of children and parents. I wanted to believe her. So we invited Nathan, his father Walter, and my sister Tessa to Sunday lunch. I dressed neatly, nothing flashy, just soft colors that made me look gentle. I rehearsed my lines in my head: calm, regretful, forgiving. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to remind him what he stood to lose. Nathan arrived exactly on time. He greeted everyone politely but didn't hug me. He sat at the table with that same stillness that now scared me more than anger ever could. Walter joined him, carrying a thin brown folder. My mother whispered that it was probably just financial documents, but the way Nathan's eyes stayed on me made me doubt it. We ate in silence until I spoke. I told him I knew he was hurt, but that I'd made one mistake and didn't deserve to be punished for it forever. I said the children needed both of us. That love could heal things if we let it. Nathan didn't answer. He opened the folder, took out a set of papers, and laid them flat on the table. He said these were copies of messages, phone logs, and account transfers. He said he wanted transparency so no one could twist his actions later. My mother tried to interrupt, but Walter told her to let him finish. Nathan spoke quietly, explaining how he'd already moved the house into a legal trust under his name, and for the children's benefit. He said every decision was approved by a lawyer. No threats, no shouting, just facts. I said he was embarrassing me, that he didn't have to do this in front of everyone. He said, "You already did that when you dragged my best friend into our marriage." I cried, said I'd been lonely, that I only needed to feel wanted. He said, "And now you're free to find that feeling somewhere else." Even my mother looked shaken. Tessa reached across the table and whispered, "It's over, Liora. Don't make it worse." Nathan signed one page at the bottom, left the pen, and pushed the document toward me. It was the final divorce petition, already filed, pending my signature. He said, "Everything's arranged legally. There will be no fighting. I've made sure the children are safe. I'm done." Then he stood up, thanked my parents for lunch, and walked out with his father. I sat there speechless. My mother scolded him under her breath for being cold, but even she sounded unsure. The house felt quiet again after they left, like the walls were waiting for me to realize what I'd lost. After that Sunday, nothing was the same. Nathan stopped coming by except to pick up the kids. He'd wait by the curb, engine running, polite but distant. He no longer stepped inside. When I tried to speak to him, he'd say, "Talk to my lawyer." Even his texts were formal. At work, I caught people whispering. Someone must have seen the court filing online. I tried to ignore it, pretending everything was fine, but the laughter and pitying looks followed me like shadows. Miles quit his job at the company where Nathan worked and moved to another city. I messaged him once, asking if he hated me. He never replied. Weeks passed. The house felt emptier every day. The joint account stayed frozen. The lawyer sent me instructions for signing over the house title, part of the settlement Nathan had already arranged. It was efficient, final, clean. I wanted to call him, to scream or beg, but every time I thought of his quiet face at that table, I couldn't. He hadn't destroyed me out of spite. He'd simply removed himself from my reach. My mother kept saying he'd come around. "No one stays angry forever," she said. But he wasn't angry. That's what I finally understood. He was free, and I was the only one still trapped inside the mess I'd made. The divorce hearing was short. Nathan arrived early, greeted the judge respectfully, and never once looked at me. The evidence spoke for itself. I kept my head down, pretending the papers in front of me were just words on a page. When it was over, Nathan stood, shook his lawyer's hand, and left the courtroom without saying goodbye. I went home to a house that no longer felt like mine. The photos were gone from the walls. He'd taken only the ones with the kids. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the thin folder that held my copy of the decree. My name looked strange beside the word dissolved. Outside, the wind rattled the fence Nathan had once promised to fix. I thought about that night at the cafe, the careless question that started everything, the look on Miles's face when shame finally hit me. I thought about how one moment of wanting to feel powerful had cost me every bit of real power I'd ever had. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I caught myself whispering into the emptiness. I just wanted to feel wanted. There was no answer, just the soft echo of my own voice, small and hollow, fading into the quiet Nathan left behind. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.